All right, morning everyone. Well, we had a nice little gap down last night from the market close to the market open overnight. So our futures brought us down, and we basically more or less starting over at the trend line. We're getting a nice little bounce right now on the trend line. This is basically our third hit off of this level that we're kind of just holding onto the trend. The pullback from yesterday's pre-market to our high at the close before we had the big drop is basically right down here. Is the 61% is over here at 303.77. The pre-market bounce that we got, or right at the close after hours, you could say, I guess this was going in the close because we opened up over at this level, but down at the low area that we had before we had the bounce, the impulse leg there, was bouncing off of that transactions that we got that came in on Friday, the 297.89 level. And that's where we got our bounce. So we knew that that was going to be the hard floor. We did see transactions coming in that afternoon at the 339, so basically about $300. All day yesterday, we were getting all the late prints of this transactions where they were accumulating a lot of pressure around that 300 for that push. Last night at the close, after the market closes, we get the information that they're coming in at the 313 level, bringing us right back down. So right now we are basically within this range between the 313 being our roof and 300 to 297 is basically our basing floor zone. We start breaking, of course, the 297 level at any point. That's when we're going to start having the fear kind of kicking in. We're going to have the more downward move. In order for us to have a harmonic pattern that we like to play and stuff, we really do need it to bust down a little bit more to have a better quality pattern, because this is more or less, I'm still looking at this as being our X to A, and this is more or less our A to B. It doesn't look like we've really gotten a C to B leg completed. These technically can be, because we've had enough range inside of these areas. We've got enough pullback to measure off to create a bounce. It just doesn't have that same structure that you would expect off of another type of pattern, because you gotta think of how far we just on this massive drop we've had. Yes, we do have a potential pattern push. It's just that we're holding trend, and usually we break that trend on that pullback before we get that push back up and get that real nice, beautiful W formation on it. Being that, you know, the market has a tendency, whenever we open lower, we wind up being lower. Whenever we wind up opening up higher, we wind up going higher. We're opening up lower. Across the board, majority of the stocks out there are showing us that we're in red negative territory, because we've just been basically just tanking since pretty much the close of yesterday. Okay. This is not a good sign for us to be able to hold this trend line, but we are holding the trend line at the current moment. I'd like to see, because we had such a sell-off here, I'd like to see the trend line hold at the open and us get a little bit of a gap fill of a break before we come back down, retest the trend, see if we get that snap. The key area here I'm looking for on the pullback is around this 303.27 off of this current little run here. But if we go back and look at actually measuring the actual full length from our very bottom where we basically did the initial bounce, we got room to about 302.57 to be a 38% area for a potential bounce off of this zone, with room all the way down to 297.07. Okay, down into this area to get our 61%, or even lower down to 292. We've been looking at 292 over here since this basing we had in the first place. The key thing is that for us to have a nice harmonic, we're going to need a better pullback in order to have a better quality. Eventually, I believe we're going to break this trend. Today may be the day, since we have the nice gap down where we get that snap. We come back down and start retesting these levels as 300 for a potential push back up. Key thing is we start breaking down to this levels. This is where we're going to start getting a lot of fear inside of the market. We're going to start, because right now we're range bound. This little pullback here is not going to scare a whole bunch of investors. We start getting into this area, we're going to start getting the worries of the doom and gloom. And of course, we got the all-time low levels. Is going to be the sky is falling type event. We still have room down to the 272 level off of a major move down. This could be as simple of a starting of it. We don't have any major prints coming in that shows that this is the reversal yet, like we've had way back over here when we started on Friday, where we had back on the 19th, we started seeing a major event. Right now we're seeing normal traffic like any given day coming through with institution buying and selling pressure right now. The 300 was had some prints that was considered pushing the limit of an everyday move. Okay, so was pushing the limit. If it gets much higher, we would have been starting to get into unusual activity, but we got to that point where we were just right underneath it. We were kind of filling up the normal everyday gap that we get on any given day and stopping right there. They didn't push the limits beyond that. So look for a potential dip buy pop on the market because of the oversold conditions at the open. After the settlement of the open, I'd like to see a reflushing. Just go ahead and break that trend line and see if we can just get this thing to start flushing down is what I'd love to see. But once again, keep a close eye on the trend area because it's the key area. I mean, support resistance is made to be broken. It's only support until it's no longer support. So just basically, this is not a strong support level by no means. That's why I want to see the trend line eventually just give this up. I want to see this thing come down a little bit more before we get any quality bounces. If we ever plan on getting up to this 318 level, we really need a better pull before we have another push in order to achieve that. All right, moving into some earnings. Splunk was one of the major moves we had last night. Massive drop off of earnings. They bought it right back up into the conference call. A major gap fill. Usually when we get a massive drop and then we get a major gap fill, this is usually a condition to where the exhaustion happens at the top and we get the pullback and we start sideways actioning for a little while. But it's also a very good sign, because this happened during pre-market and didn't happen during the normal trading day, that we have potential of breaking out at this point. So at this point, we've got to look at the major move has already happened with Splunk. We need to start looking for a little bit more bullish territory. They did miss slightly on their EPS, but more or less it's a neutral. They missed by 1 cent. I mean, come on, that's a neutral pretty much report there. They are in line on their report. Now, what has hurt them and what brought this big drop down is that they are guiding lower. They're guiding lower, okay? So this is the huge thing, is where we got that misconception of the drop and the pop, but we've also hit that 61 level and had that beautiful bounce, and we're holding above 38. And this is why I'm looking at the technical side of it. This thing doesn't look like it really wants to completely flush. Now, we can get a nice, especially with the market having a potential pullback, we could have a nice little harmonic that could be developing right here for another pullback, for another pop. So pay attention to this type of a look. We could get that pullback and get that nice D to C move potentially coming into the open for another curl push back up and another, push back up to 38, 61% pushback off of a completion on it. So look for a potential area of that. Key thing is I usually, when I see these type of stocks during the trading day, this usually means they're going to turn into sideways, but this how it happened during pre-market, that kind of changes the game a little bit. So look for a potential pull and a push off of that happening on that. Zoom. Another one that got hit pretty hard last night with its report. A little bit surprised at this actually, because I've had a lot of companies come out praising, they're pushing, the 120. Of course, they pushed the 120 and they tapped it. But we got a lot of neutral plays that came in with analysts. So the caution needs to be put up here. But this is kind of like a virus stock that would be where people will be working from home. You would think they would do better there. You'd think that we'd look at something as this would be something that would actually, push a little bit further because of it's somewhat related to, doing work from home. They did beat decent on their EPS. They did beat their revenues. They are guiding next quarter above consensus across the board. They're guiding next year across the board positive. Yet we had the drop. Okay. We also have some analysts giving it neutral ratings now. This is going to be tough, and a lot of the neutral ratings are around the 110 area. So that's gonna hurt us a little bit as far as trying to get some traction here off of it. I'm looking at this as this drop was more or less because we had analysts already talking the 120 mark that was bought up into earnings. We've got the sell off. So be cautious here somewhat. We could have another Roku setting up here. Don't want to necessarily take this thing crazy long. We've got to play the price action with this thing because we have decent earnings, decent guidance, analysts giving it neutral positions, analysts before the earnings came out hitting their PT zones, which kind of gives me like, okay, maybe there's some neutralization that they're looking at that makes some sense. And we got bought up into and we kind of did a quick sell off. I would just like to see this start developing into a price action play more than anything else, because we more or less could have a dead cat bounce and a fade off here. I do not see Zoom going sub 100. We got a couple of analysts. I got a couple of price targets down the 96, 98 area, but I don't really see this thing dropping down to the 100 and breaking through. I think we finally got that 100 hurdle. I think we're going to try to hold it above this level. I think we're just going to have a big problem between 120 and this 105 zone or so. We're going to have a nice little ranger. So this one's going to be a good one, I believe, to play today. We just got to make sure that we don't have a bias that we're going to say, oh, this must do this and that. Just pay attention to it, because you see what happened to Roku with some people got biased opinions on it, and they wound up biting them in the ass in the process. So make sure this does not happen to you on this. Love. Southwest Airlines. We are basically coming out with guidance that is negatively impacting the company across the board. Boeing was did them in a while back, and now we've got the coronavirus hitting them also. And we are in some levels here where I don't really expect a massive bleed off on it. I think if things get too bad, I think government will come into the airlines and help them. To bail them out more or less. The floor right now is 44.26. That'd be 100% gap fill off of a previous negative rundown. So I can see the thing slipping down another $1.50 or so. But I think that's where we're going to probably start seeing the basing floor at this thing. We're going to have to probably get some more negative news, more doom and gloom, I think, in order for us to break that low level here. So right now we're range bound over the last couple of days between the 48 and the 44 level. I believe that this will continue slowing, going to the downward. We did have a little micro harmonic that kind of pushed us into the close, and we pulled back. We've already pulled back enough for it to start developing into something new. But I'd like to see a little bit more downside off of that one. That one's going to be a very slow mover and stuff. You may want to just also look at sympathy plays with United Airlines and Delta. A lot of times those things will be moving a little bit quicker than Love does. They should kind of give the same results, because it's not just this company that's going to get hit. It's going to be all of the companies across the board when it comes to this. And one being more upfront than the other doesn't really matter. GWRE beat pretty well in their EPS. They beat their revenues, but they're guiding across the board down. A little bit of a just take the rug from underneath you and just pull it out. Okay, so we basically have broke 100 like 100 doesn't exist. A big snap, big sell-off. We've more or less got the dead cat bounce hit. Okay, we're at 88% right now at $65. I'd like to see this thing curl and start trying to gap fill a little bit. I know we've already done that in pre-market, but damn, that's a drop without any type of a settlement. Start looking for a basing here. See if we can get a base hold here and see if we can get that push back up to start recovering off of this 100. I'd like to see a push to about a 100 area before it settles down, and probably a sideways action from there. That'd be a good, that's probably about 23%, getting that about that high off of our drop, somewhere in that ballpark. Let's see. Yeah, we're right about there, 99 and some change, 99.5. So close to the 100 area. I'd like to see a little bit of a push, and then I'd like to see it a little sideways. I don't really want to see it breaking it down any lower. But once again, don't get hell bent on this thing, because this has setting itself up for a potential drop on the downside. So make sure that you do see the curling, you do see the price action coming in for the basing for that. Because if you snap in this area here, you're down to $92 next. So just be a little bit careful, because if this is truly a dead cat bounce, it will sell off more off of that. So we just need to see where we stand at this going into the open. Burlington, we got a light beat on EPS. We're in line on our revenue, and we're guiding next quarter below across the board. We're guiding next year below. Nothing good. I mean, the only thing positive is they beat by 2 cents on EPS. Ooh, that makes me want to come in and invest in this company. Well, needless to say, it didn't do much in pre-market. Burlington's one of those sleepers during its earnings. It's going to wake up when the market opens. This thing will move, and it will move points. So be careful with this one. At the same time, we need to be more of a negative attitude with it, because it didn't do well. So we're at 61. The key area for us to have a trend to the downside is going to be breaking that 214.11 area. We've got light traffic right now. Don't really utilize this pre-market action as any type of settlement. We don't have enough to go off of. We need to kind of start where we closed at and look and see if we can pull back off of it. 219.41 is the key area I want to see break for any type of sub down. It is doable. This stock can go down to 210 today. Play the price action once again on this thing, just because we see the stock with the negative across the board. We should have the downside, but we see what has happened recently in the last couple of stocks when we get the assumption that it has already had its sell off. So be careful. This can be just a basing. You see how it's accumulated over here over the last week or so. The market has sold off. We're just accumulating. It's not really gapping up with the SPY off of this report. I want more negative downside to it, because I don't like the report, but doesn't mean that I'm going to be hell bent that I'm going to try to take it down. If I don't see the entry for a downside and I start seeing it starting to bounce, then by all means, I'll scalp this thing to the long side just as easily. So just be careful with the price action. This one will be in play today, where you should have some really good range off of it. CGC has announced they're going to optimize the plan for their Canadian operation and closing 2 of their greenhouses. Well, that is a sweet way of saying business isn't doing well. I mean, you gotta, the person that comes up with the worded, the way they word things is just amazing. You know, basically they're saying that they're not making any money. We're closing two facilities, so you got to take this in context. This is, you would think, oh, this is positive because they are working on a plan to optimize the company. But realistically, they're trying to say, hey, we're trying to cut a limb off to save the body. You know, so we've already had our drop at the open. We're already starting to get a little bit of a crawl here. I would like to see CGC drop a little bit more. I'd love to see it down here about 1636 level. We're holding trend. I think this is doable. That's not unrealistic. It's only about 60 cents lower. The stock doesn't move very fast per day anyway, but just watch the price action at the open. Let it settle down. I can see a potential, gap up a little bit since it sold off so much last night, and then look for a curl for the downside. And the further it goes up, the better it will be for us to be able to take the short later. I mean, push back up to 1734 would be actually a sweet spot area for that curl to come right back down off of it. So just start looking for a good pullback entry point, more or less, with this one for potential short off of it. COHN. We've got they did well on their EPS year over year, and their sales are up year over year. We've got a good report with this company. This stock is a turd. We just polished it. Okay. So remember that the thing is a low float and flew in pre-market. You need to respect that. It has pushed up to a 78% level off of previous runs. It's falling as we speak in pre-market. This thing will be a hot topic today, but the liquidity on a given day in and day out is total crap. Just look at how much it doesn't do anything on a 1 minute chart. Be careful with this one. This one can move a couple dollars on you in a matter of a few minutes. If you're going to try to play this thing, scalp only on it and look for, dip buying opportunities, pullbacks off of something like this. You want to start looking for at least a good 61 or so. Let me change the color on this one because we're getting everything blended together and it all looks the same, I know. We can have a pullback to about $6 off of our current area. That would be a decent area to buy. $5 more realistic. We haven't came down to 38. We should hit the 38 at the open. The key thing is if we hold 38, we can get a curl for a push off of it. We break 38, and you can expect 61 is going to be coming down. 61 makes a lot more sense because we got more of a structured area between the 38 of the previous run and off of its current run it's doing right now. So around the $6 area would be the optimum place to start considering taking this thing. Like I said, scalp only, guys. Don't get married to this thing. And if you don't see the volume and the traffic flowing in here, don't play it. Don't get stuck in this as an all-day play also, because you get in it and become a bag holder real easily with it. So just be very cautious. Continue looking at any of the things that's moving with the stock for a while. I mean, Boeing's been hit really hard lately. Shop has been on the move. Of course, your Apples, your Nvidias, Teslas, all that are still going to be in play. All the stocks that are virus related as the market pulls, we'll see those start slowly going back up. So look for those as dip buying opportunities also. If you guys need anything, set us up in the Discord voice chat on there. We'll be in there talking throughout the day, and around noon we'll do the questions and answers and talk over charts and go into details where you can ask about the charts and we can go through on each individual one. So if y'all need anything, just hit us up there. Y'all have a great morning.